Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining me once again today, and welcome back to Total War Warhammer 2 Multiplayer Battles. I am continuing my exploration of the High Elves, and this time I am playing against the Greenskins, my very favorite faction from Total War Warhammer 1. They've had a few changes, they remain mostly the same, but there's been a few lineup changes. We've talked about them a little bit before. So, as the High Elves, I'm trying something a little bit more punchy against the Greenskins, because the Greenskins do have such a powerful front line, so much powerful infantry and such infantry support power in their magic and leadership. I wanted to try to kind of fight the infantry fight. So my front line, I have two spearmen chevroned up to give them higher leadership and even higher melee defense. Their melee defense is absurd, by the way. And in the center, I have two units of Swordmasters of Horde, which are just such fantastic anti-infantry. I believe they're the best anti-infantry units in the game, at least when it comes to other infantry. Once you count in that bonus versus infantry, their attack versus infantry is 62, which is like Lord territory. It's not an infantry unit territory. And their melee defense is also quite respectable, and of course their weapon strength is very, very high. It's 50 when you count in that bonus versus infantry. So they're very, very dangerous anti-infantry units. I have 4 units of archers. You may have noticed I tend to put my archers in this blocky formation instead of spreading them out like I do with infantry. That's because in blocky formations like these, archer units rotate faster because they don't have to wait for the ends of the formation to swing all the way around before they count as in position. So they can start firing sooner, and I think it gives you a definite tactical advantage with archers. It does make them more vulnerable to artillery and spells, however, so you do have to kind of keep that in mind. I have 1 Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. I like this too much as an anti-infantry unit to not take 1, but I didn't want to take 2 because I needed to save money for my hard-hitting infantry corps, especially because behind all of that I do have 1 unit of Phoenix Guard, which are even more expensive than the Swordmasters. I brought them just in case because the Greenskins do have access to some large monsters, giants and Arachnaroks, and they also have some cavalry that's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So I wanted the Phoenix Guard kind of as a backup. And of course they are very solid in infantry fights. They're not exceptional in that context, but they're very solid with their high attack, high defense, and 30% physical resistance. Plus they cause fear, which is always good against Greenskins. So, besides the infantry, I have a Mage of Light who I have put on a chariot, because since the Greenskins are very infantry focused and infantry dependent, I feel like chariots are a good choice in this matchup, especially because Warhammer 2 chariots are very, very good. The Mage of Light, I brought the Starwood Staff and the Book of Hoeth for extra magic. I have brought Net of Amontok and Banishment for that AoE damage goodness. And he is, like I said, on the chariot, so he can move pretty fast. He has okay armor, not fantastic. And he does have a whopping 30 bonus versus infantry, which makes him a monster against infantry units. My leadership is a Prince on a Sun Dragon. I really like the Sun Dragon, especially once again against infantry-centric lists. Now, there are some matchups in which I would not take a Prince on a Dragon, but against the Greenskins, I think the Prince on the Sun Dragon works very well, since he doesn't have to worry much about armor-piercing ranged fire. He can use his Fire Breath to full effect. He can fly around, drop down on vulnerable units, and get up in the air again. I think he's a solid pick. And I have brought 1 unit of Tyrannok Chariots. I've talked about them before. My opponent, so I've deployed kind of over here, a little bit in the woods, not hidden, but sort of up against the side, pointed out a little bit towards the open space, kind of in a bid to make him cross the open space in the teeth of my fire. My opponent has deployed over here in the woods where he's hidden, clearly hoping to advance through the woods to get at me if I had deployed in the center of my deployment zone. And he has taken a very large army. This is, well, it's kind of a Horde build, not exactly. His front line is quite elite. He's got 2 Orc Biggins, flanking 3 units of Black Orcs. Black Orcs, of course, have gotten that buff up to 50 weapon strength, so they're very dangerous. His leadership corps is Wurzag with 2 Goblin Big Bosses on Spiders, which are very solid picks. They're good harassment and disruption units, and they have that Encourage aura. They also have Strider. They're not actually very tough or very damaging, so there's that, but they are cheap. Wurzag, he's brought a whole bunch of stuff on. Wurzag, of course, has physical resistance, which is very high right now because he also has the Warpaint of Wurzag, which gives everyone around him extra physical resistance. He has Wurzag's Revenge, which gives everyone else a 50% miscast chance. He has the Squiggly Beast, which is basically Arcane Conduit. the Bonewood Staff, so whenever he's casting, all of his units get extra melee attack and charge bonus. That's an interesting bonus because at any given time, half of it won't really apply. I mean, if you're already fighting, the charge bonus doesn't matter. And if you're charging in, then the melee attack is not going to apply for some of the duration. So really, I think what it means is you want to cast a spell right as you charge in. He's got Brain Bursta, which is much more effective in Warhammer 2 than it was in 1. Still not hugely damaging, but it is cheap and it has a low cooldown, so can be useful in tight quarters. He's brought the Fists of Gork. Here we go. Foot of Gork. He's brought Get Back Here, and he's brought the Effigy of Degit, which is Wurzag's single target net ability. So Fists of Gork is, once again, not too expensive. It's only a single target spell, which is kind of a weakness of it. Here We Go, on the other hand, is absolutely a staple of Greenskin lists. It's a very, very wide radius, plus massive melee attack, and it lasts for a good period of time. And it's not too expensive either, so with Black Orcs and Biggins and all that stuff, Here We Go is hugely valuable. On the flanks, he's brought the Warlord's Boys, which are the Regiment of Renown Night Goblins with Armor Sundering. He's brought a regular unit of Night Goblins. He's got 2 units of Squig Horde, which are a cheap, rampaging, armor-piercing, anti-infantry unit. They're kind of like Cold Ones, Feral Cold Ones, except they also have a pretty substantial bonus versus infantry. So they do very well against infantry. They do have Rampage, however. He's got 4 units of regular Goblin Archers, and guarding them, he has 1 unit of Nasty Skulkers, which of course are very, very valuable because of their Smoke Bomb ability that applies a huge speed debuff to enemies around them when they target it. And they have this bonus, so if they're winning combat, they get to win more, which is nice. So, game starts off. Immediately, the Greenskin army starts turning to face me through the woods. My army, I take a moment longer to move. I'm kind of assessing the situation, trying to see what I can see of his troops. A lot of his units are hidden. So, but I kind of get a glimpse. I'm looking at that. I see Biggins, I see Black Orcs, I see Archers, and I see some Squigs. And I think I also saw Wurzag, so I shift my position to face his. We'll fast forward just a tiny, tiny bit. And then I'm going to send my Tyrannok Chariots and my Prince up around this flank to see if I can get any sneaky, sneaky attacks off. He is advancing through the woods. But this army is a great target for Chariots and for the Dragon because he has brought no cavalry whatsoever. Now, in the context of Warhammer 2, I think Greenskin cavalry is overall a little weaker than it was, and it already wasn't super impressive. So that's not entirely an unreasonable choice. The bolt throwers are going off, hitting the Black Orcs, doing some respectable damage. Not great. Black Orcs have too much armor to really be very badly damaged by the bolt throwers. I mean, the anti-infantry shot is, it is armor-piercing, but it just doesn't do a huge amount of damage, and against spaghetti lines in particular, most of the projectiles don't really hit. But they're doing some damage. They're sort of picking away at these Black Orcs, weakening them a little bit before the fight happens. So you can see these Black Orcs are taking a respectable amount of hits. My Chariots are firing into the Biggins and doing a lot of damage. With those 3 shots, 3 missiles per shot, they've already taken out 6 models, which is pretty substantial. And they're now coming back, kind of chasing the archers back into a blob. Unfortunately, I didn't see the Nasty Skulkers until now. I try to pull away, but the Nasty Skulkers hit me with the smoke bomb. I didn't see the graphic, interestingly, and now the Tyrannok Chariots are getting wasted because they can't run, and their low armor does not permit them to survive that kind of archer fire. So they're taking a ton of damage. However, they are still getting some kills on the Nasty Skulkers, which is okay. I mean, I'm accomplishing something here. The Black Orcs have been pretty decently weakened by the bolt throwers, and now the archers are going in. Even with that high armor, this many archers is going to do damage. And now my infantry line is going to charge forward. I was casting a net. Yep, I'm dropping a net right there. Really, I shouldn't have bothered because I'm charging in anyway, but at least it does stop this Squig herd from getting into my Sword Masters, which was important because I needed to finish off the Black Orcs before the Squigs got into me. My Lord landed, routed a unit of Goblin Archers, and got back up. The Tyrannok Chariots came back from routing, broke the Nasty Skulkers, and then routed again, which is kind of funny, but they got 56 kills, so not bad. My dragon is still bullying these archers back here while the infantry fight goes on. The Phoenix Guard charged in and destroyed the Squig Herd immediately. Squig Herds are large. The Phoenix Guard massacred them in combinations with the Sword Masters of Hoeth. I get a really good banishment that goes all the way down the line of these Orc Biggins. That was lucky. It was good, and it was lucky. That Light Mage got a lot of kills. Unfortunately, I get a big stomping right here that does a ton of damage to my Phoenix Guard and to my Sword Masters. But with that charge, I've broken the entire flank of the Orc line, and so now I can sweep over here to deal with these Night Goblins and Black Orcs and Wurzag. I'm pouring fire into the Squig Herd because they can do damage totally out of proportion to their cost, and I really want to get rid of them. I think my chariots have routed off the field at this point. Nope, there they are. There's the Tyrannok chariots, getting back into the archers. They are being chased by a Goblin Big Boss, but they're scoring a lot of kills, and more importantly, they're preventing that archer unit from firing. The Prince is flying around at the speed of sound, doing his thing. I'm moving the archers up. The artillery... What is the artillery doing? The artillery is not firing. Actually, it is firing at the moment. So here, it's interesting. I'm landing into the mosh-pit to try and hurt some of these units and Wurzag, while firing my artillery back at the routing units to keep them routing. This Goblin Big Boss comes in to attack my archers, which is, yeah, he can shut down this unit of archers, but Goblin Big Bosses are not actually very good at doing damage to units. I mean, I'm hurting myself more with friendly fire than he's hurting me at the moment, and he's taking a ton of damage too. So, you know, this honestly isn't a terribly good use of Goblin Big Bosses. He can't use his Encourage Aura over here, and he's getting kind of overwhelmed. Over here, my Sword Masters are doing a great job just stopping every single attempt by the Greenskins to get back into the infantry fight. The Squig Herd are coming in. Wurzag is dropping his leadership buff, but he's taken a ton of damage at this point, and my archers are now mowing down his Goblin archers, which tend to lose archer fights very, very badly. The dragon is going to get his fire breath off, and wow, look at that damage. That was pretty good. 133 kills on the Prince. These biggins have shattered from damage. My Light Mage on his chariot, I think, is actually in the fight. Yep, there he is. He broke, but he scored 71 kills. So he's gotten an extra 30 kills with chariot charges after that banishment. My Prince is now pulling away because that was too much archer fire. I didn't like it. But I've done enough damage now that a lot of the Orcish units are routing. And the Goblin archers are wavering. Plus, with the artillery and the archers still providing support fire. See, look at this. This Goblin Big Boss has done a bunch of damage, but he's not able to actually finish the job. And now he is wavering and starting to rout away. My Swordmaster's still going strong. Phoenix Guard's still doing okay. The Swordmaster's going to charge into their third consecutive combat against Black Orcs and win it decisively with the support of these other units. My artillery, for some reason, is moving forward, I think because it's still targeting these units back here. I'm going to retarget it fairly soon. And the Light Mage is also coming back. I get one more breath just to do a little bit of parting damage, a little bit of leadership damage to drive those Goblin Archers off. But then they get netted, and the Light Mage decides to take matters into his own hands and charge in personally to do the damage. That's actually one of the cooler combos that you can pull off with a Light Mage on a chariot. You can net appropriate targets and then charge in after them. The Swordmasters of Hoeth, of course, are having great fun just running down these archers. The Light Mage is going to charge into the regrouped nasty Skulkers and break their leadership again. These guys do not deal well with chariots. So at this point, the Orcish army is in full retreat. The artillery is keeping the Goblin archers fairly well suppressed, and Wurzag is surrounded by heavy anti-infantry and some spearmen as well, and is taking a ton of damage, while the Light Mage drives back here to bust through the Black Orcs and make sure that these units keep running away. Now, the Prince did nearly die, but he's still okay. He's coming back now. 160 kills, very solid performance, although admittedly a lot of them were archers. But at that point, losses kick in and the enemy routs. So, I think that went very well. Now, that said, Ewald Disney, those nasty Skulkers back there by the archers, those were really good. They almost got me. I didn't see them in time, and my chariots got absolutely wrecked by the slow. So that was very well played. The infantry line, this is pretty much the best an Orcish infantry line can do, although they didn't have as much support as they could have had. If they had an Orc Warboss or Grimgore with the Wah in there and stand your ground and all of that, I think these guys probably could have cut through my front line with that kind of support. Wurzak can't provide quite the same level of backup, and I'm not sure if he actually dropped Here We Go, which would have been very, very useful. He was casting other spells during the battle, including, of course, that massive Foot of Gork that did a ton of damage to me. But I think a few casts of utility spells like Here We Go and such might have stood in better stead. The Squig Hordes are very dangerous, which is why I kind of focused them down and why I countercharged with the Phoenix Guard to take out the one unit that charged into me as quickly as I could. The Goblin Archers, a good pick. I would probably recommend getting Durusty Arrows in here for that armor sundering. If they'd had Durusty Arrows, they might have been able to pull down my prince a lot more effectively. My build, I think, really worked. The Chariots did a good job. The Prince did a fantastic job. Even the Light Mage actually did a good job in terms of kills, plus the nets, which were nice. The Mage on the Chariot, I think, is a very, very interesting choice, and it's a choice that a lot of factions don't have. I think the Beastmen can put mages on chariots, the High Elves can do it, the Dark Elves, I believe, can do it as well, but it's Cold One chariots which rampage, which can be a problem. I think that might be it. I can't think of any other factions that can have mages on chariots. And a mage on a chariot is an interesting place because chariots tend to have more armor and they have that big anti-infantry bonus, so they make the mage actually useful in some kinds of combat while also retaining speed. Now, of course, if you're caught by cavalry, you're doomed, but that's true of mages anyway. If a mage is caught by cavalry, they're probably dead. The Swordmasters of Hoeth really did me proud. They went up against Black Orcs just straight to the face, and they took them on and they won very, very solidly. Look at this guy, 143 kills. So I definitely like the Swordmasters. You do definitely have to protect them. I was fortunate that my opponent did not bring any artillery or anything. One unit of Doom Divers could have ruined my whole day here. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you're fighting High Elves. They're likely to have some of this elite infantry, and some artillery can really, really do a number on them. Even if you don't have armor-piercing ranged units, you do have armor-piercing artillery, so that's something to consider. And the Bolt Thrower did a good job, weakened the Black Orcs before they came in, and then put suppressing fire on the Goblin Archers to keep them routing, and that's what I needed it to do, so it was very solid. Bolt Throwers don't tend to really overperform, but they also don't underperform. I mean, assuming the enemy has infantry, the Eagle Claws have a good target. So that's all I have for today. Thank you all so much for watching. More of this will, of course, be coming in the future. Hey, let me know what you'd like to see. Drop comments and tell me what it is that you're looking for. I'll be probably wrapping up the High Elves sometime pretty soon. A few more videos on them, and then I'll move on to the Dark Elves, or I'll just move on to more focus on Mortal Empires and New World versus Old World matchups in general. But if you have a replay you'd like me to talk about, feel free to send it. My email is on the About page. Or if you just want to sit back and relax and watch some videos, I've got you covered. So thank you all so much once again, and I'll see you in the next one.